Okay. All right. Well, welcome to the January meeting of ANC3C's Public Safety Committee. I'm expecting one other person to join us, but we can get started. Rick, if you have anything.
Well, certainly I'd also like to welcome the members and particularly Captain Haskis and Lieutenant Johnson. Wish you a happy new year and thank you for joining us. We realize that this is a busy season um, between the various events in the second district, the inaugural and everything, in addition to all the regular responsibilities that you have. But thanks for joining us. We look forward to the update on crime trends and statistics and other significant developments since our last meeting several weeks ago. And I'm sure that there will be questions as well about the disturbing shooting overnight just to the west of the ANC and north of the second district at City Ridge. So, Lieutenant or Captain?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Hey, it's Lieutenant Johnson from 2D AN PSA 204. I have a crime report for ANC3C, and it's looking very good for this month compared to the 30-day crime period last year. This month we had 22. We have 22 crimes to report, 21 thefts, and 1 motor vehicle theft. And with that motor vehicle theft, that was a car that was towed to a tow crane lot and recovered. It was recovered, but it had some parts missing. It was partly illegal, got towed, and then at some point it was vandalized. Other than that, most of our thefts are from the CVSs, the 3300 block of Connecticut and the 2600 block of Connecticut. Both continue to have, thefts, but a lot less than we used to, thanks to the footbeat that we have in those areas. And I will touch on the unfortunate homicide we had last night. I was on the scene of that this morning. There was I can't say too much. It's an open case, but it was no threat to public safety. It happened in number 30, Ridge Square Northwest. It was an inside scene in an apartment, and the subjects knew each other, and there should be an arrest made shortly. Detectives have very good leads.
Okay, thank you. I know that we've just finished the holiday season when various other stuffs, whether it's packages or from autos, tend to spike up. Did you see the same trend this year, or is the public more vigilant? Or
Definitely, the public's being more vigilant. The theft from autos, we have 0 in the last 30 days. So apparently, we've been hiding items. We're locking our doors. We're parking in lit areas. We're doing good things. You also will see, you've seen marked police cars, the lights flashing in the 3300 block of Connecticut and the 2600 block of Connecticut at night. Those are part of our burglary plan. On December 2nd, we had an uptick of burglaries. And we had maybe 20 something across the city, and the chief put a burglary plan in effect. So we have high visibility in our retail areas at night. And that includes the 3300 block, the 3400 block of Connecticut, and the 2600 block of Connecticut. Also, the 1700 block, you'll see more visibility at night for those burglaries. And that also, deters theft models also.
okay, thank you.
I have oh, sorry. I didn't see Courtney's hand up.
It's okay, Janelle, go because I've got a couple things to ask too.
Okay. I saw something on one of the local blogs about incident happening, I believe it was at 3400 Connecticut, where an Amazon driver was delivering packages and seemed to have an accomplice that came in after and then stole the packages. And it was all caught on the building surveillance camera stuff. I think it's the post said that you guys were aware of it and investigating it, and even Amazon is looking into it. Is that a thing now, or is that?
Those drivers are targeted. all over the city when they make the deliveries. I'm sorry.
Apparently it appeared like the Amazon driver was in cahoots with the person who went back in and stole the stuff.
Well, that's not normal, but it does happen.
Okay.
It's not like a normal thing, but
Yeah.
they hire some suspicious people too, I guess, and that is a possibility.
Okay, interesting.
One thing I wanted to ask about is there was an incident that occurred on Macomb Street, just west of Connecticut Avenue and the library. In mid-December, it was just a day or two after our last public safety committee meeting. A resident and an occasional participant in this committee heard gunshots, just outside her residence, and looked out to see someone having pointed and shot a gun at another. No one was injured, and one or both fled. And I think the uniform division, the Secret Service, was first on the scene. But is that something that had shown up? I mean, again, that sort of activity during the middle of the day in that location is unusual, but I guess this happens.
Yeah, I do recall an incident. I know a report was taken for that, the sounds of gunshots, but no one was hit. I know Captain Hatch was on this. I don't think anyone was ever found, no victims were ever found in reference to that. That's still an open investigation.
The update I could, yeah, by the way, Happy New Year, everyone. Commissioners, Commissioner Nash, thank you for having us. It's so far a good start to the year, and but it's very early. In terms of that, our detectives do have a bolo out. It is one that it's an internal bolo, so so we do have a person of interest in it. I believe they could close this one in the coming weeks, but we'll see. But it seems to be not as obvious as the Ridge Square homicide early this morning, but it seems to be stemming from a dispute between two known parties. Unfortunately, unlike the other dispute, which was behind closed doors inside of an apartment building, this one was out on the Macomb Street. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, not about that incident, but back to what Mr. Johnson was saying about the thefts. So at night, usually I go on a walk and then ended going to the little organic market. And on 2 occasions, in that 9 o'clock hour, I was witness to 2 thefts happening from CVS. And the women that are working there, if there are 2 women working at night, they have to lock the door, and then they let people in as they come to the door, people that they feel that they can trust. One night I was there, one of the cashiers said, "Oh, they're 2 men, they look suspicious," and she locked the door. My son and I were there. We finished shopping, come out, and we see these 2 men carrying handfuls and handfuls of items. And we thought those must be the 2 guys that she had seen. She had proactively locked the door to the groceries, to Yes. And then they made it up to CVS, took whatever they wanted. We go to CVS, and the manager on duty, he was a graduate of Wilson High School, and he's about to move to Massachusetts. But all that is to say, he was exhausted from the thefts, that they are not allowed to intercede, but they still get written up when thefts happen. So it's just and then maybe 10 minutes later we saw a patrol car across the street in front of the Uptown Theater, and the timing was just a little bit off for that presence to be effective. And the 2 men, they may have been father and son, I don't know, there was a big age difference between them, but they had masks on, and hats on, and they were very effective. There was only one package of paper products left on the shelf when we got there.
May I add to Courtney before you respond, just because further information, I was also been in that CVS and talked to them often. And when asking for items, there are a lot of things they don't carry anymore because they're considered, they say we've been designated a high-risk store.
Yep.
And that makes me sad and uncomfortable that in our neighborhood, we have something that is considered so high risk that corporate can't actually furnish them. And I think it's a disservice to everybody who lives in the neighborhood in terms of being able to get the things they need and want, because it's too dangerous to keep them on the shelves. And admittedly, CVS is making its money from pharmacy largely, and everything else is, a lot of the rest is courtesy. And it's a shame that it can't be safeguarded better for everybody who lives amongst us. And it's also scary, Courtney, to be in the store.
I agree.
That happens. It happened to me at the CVS up the street by one subway stop up. People are in there. It's not quite rampaging, but it comes close. And when it happens, everybody just backs away because it's scary.
Well, because they're mostly customers there.
Yeah.
They've pared down their staff to so few people that there's no intimidate, there's no fear. You have the self-checkout, which is the way people are going. And there may be 2 people in the store tops at any given time that I'm there. Maybe after work, there might be 3 at the one down in Woodley Park. But the one in Cleveland Park, I've never seen more than 2 people at any given time. And as long as they continue with this trajectory of not having staff, I think we're going to just still see these thefts. I just don't see how it can be avoided. I mean, they lock up mostly everything, and the things that I used to buy, I have to order online, but I still like to go in person. And there's so few. They even had a problem with a rat infestation in the Cleveland Park store, I have to tell you. So it's just really frustrating because it invites the crime with really things that didn't exist before, which is to have this automated system and no staff. It just makes it so easy for them, in my opinion. I don't know how to work around it. The police are there, they're trying to do their job. The employees are there, they're trying to do their job, but there's just not enough presence to.
But we can't pretend to be an urban walkable neighborhood if you can't, the 15-minute neighborhood idea, if you can't get what you need within a 15-minute walk, if you've got to order it online, is really that the neighborhood? It's not a neighborhood anymore.
No, that's correct.
And that's a shame. That's where I really think the ANC needs to get, pay attention, because if you want to engender the feeling of neighborhood, it's got to be safer and comfortable. It's honestly, what civility needs to prevail in a much better way.
I just don't know. I mean, and if any of us can think of something other than, I think what CVS is that a Canadian store? At least it used to be when it was People's, but I think their corporate headquarters are in Massachusetts. I think so. They're not local.
This is like now taking a lot of time.
Yeah. Like I don't know what we could do.
Not with the ANC, it's not with MPD, it's with CVS.
Yeah, exactly.
Hire guards. CVS is the one that you need.
The guards are not allowed to do anything, though.
They are.
But CVS also doesn't prosecute anything under a certain dollar amount anyway.
Yeah, your problem's with CVS.
And
But
I mean,
CVS
MPD
is kind of, they're writing us off. They're deciding, okay,
well, I don't disagree
we're not
with,
going to
but
stock it. We're just going to run our pharmacy.
I mean, we can't have an MPD officer in CVS all the time.
I don't think we should.
No.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, I think the community has to do more to, voice its concern as community, as customers directly to CVS. I'm conscious of MPD's time though, and if there's specific matters to address to them, we should.
If I could just interject something very quickly. The CVS staffs, we are in touch with them constantly. I was on the phone with their new loss prevention manager for the region on today's on Tuesday, I was in touch with them. We will be having a meeting with their new loss prevention regional manager probably next week after the inauguration. We've been doing some creative operations with the CVSs, and early on, we've had some successes. We've had, for the past week or two, we've had a theft arrest at a CVS every day. The focus as of recently has been the CVS on Newark Street over by the station, where yesterday we had an arrest, today we had an arrest. We probably have closed a dozen cases at that particular CVS. We've had an operation earlier this week at the Cleveland Park one over there in 3300 block of Connecticut. Unfortunately, that operation did not net, very surprisingly, did not net an arrest. And so we at MPD are hoping the first few months of 2025 will set a good tone on how much MPD takes this, how seriously MPD takes this. And we'll be talking with CVS more, and we will try to do everything we can. Of course, we cannot always keep a car outside. That's why we're doing some more ops where we're being a little less obvious, so that we're catching the thieves in the act. But I hope in the coming months I can report on more progress.
May-
But
I just want to piggyback on both. I obviously appreciate MPD's time all the time. I see you in the Chipotle all the time, and I always say hi to you.
oh yeah.
But I do want to, and I don't mean to pick on you, Robert, but you know I'm going to pick on you right now. I will say I talked to Robert, and quite interesting to your point, Elizabeth, about the 15-minute city, is that Robert notices, or the CVS in Woodley Park notices, that the times that they don't get robbed is when there are people in the neighborhood that are outside, that are just walking, that are going to a community fair, that are just living their lives because they're afraid that they're going to be stopped by somebody who just happens to be in the vicinity, in the region, or in the area. Or if there's just, like, Robert used to do weekend markets, and the amount of people that were present would prevent people from going into those CVSs. So I understand what you're saying, because, like, listen, I've been in the Walgreens next to Capital One Arena after a game when it gets robbed, and it is scary. It's very frightening. And my dad worked in loss prevention, and I did some, when I would go to the office with him on the weekends, and it is not a pleasant situation to be in. But I don't think, the answer is just to, like, not go, or to be like, or even to Courtney's point, I'm going to just get it online. I understand it might not be in the store at that time, but I think there's a balance, because if we walk away, that's obviously going to lead it to become a bigger problem from what I've seen.
Thank you, Adam. May I ask another question just quickly to reference back to the homicide up at City Ridge? I know it's an open case and you can't say anything, but at the end, will you share with the community essentially motivation? Is it domestic violence? Is it drug deals? Is it, friend on friend robbery? But, like, just so that people have a better sense of kind of the environment of what's going on, what's motivating some of these things. And when you say it's not a risk to the general public, it doesn't sound like it's great that it exists. And so just having a better sense of what's driving some of this would be helpful, not tonight. And thank you for your time, and I don't mean to waste it. So thank you.
It's not a waste of time. Homicides are very scary, and and very concerning. But this one was inside, and I will say that the parties knew each other, so you can read into that was, it's domestic. So, but they're working on this, and it should be something they can solve pretty quickly.
And perhaps they'll share more when it's.
Yeah, there'll be a press release when the arrest is made official by the chief of police.
And thank you.
And we'll share that right in our chat. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
If I could maybe just switch gears quickly before MPD has to go from crime and public safety to security around some of the special events that occur in the ANC in the district, and particularly to get your thoughts on maybe how in future plans this concern can be addressed. So, I heard from several constituents originally early last week before the President Carter funeral, and now again with the upcoming prayer service at the National Cathedral. I realize first of all these events are probably very complex and involve your special operations division and federal agencies leading, and a host of district agencies. And I also recognize that the probably threat environment is ever changing, requiring, a bigger perimeter, and then, street closures that before with Wisconsin, it used to be an hour or so, now takes, most of the day. Um, the issue last week, and probably be worse this time, is as a couple of arterials, Wisconsin, a major one, 34th Street, a minor one, are shut down. While there are probably easier routes to reach destinations coming from downtown and the south, traffic heading south on both those streets kind of hits the barrier, and then has to divert over, narrower streets, principally Macomb and so forth. Last week, during, that event, my wife and I were walking around, and while the police were moving pedestrians off of Woodley Road, there wasn't any real control at Macomb, such that even some large delivery trucks were coming down the hill on Wall Street toward the cathedral and Woodley Road, looking for a way out of the neighborhood. So I'm sure plans for these things are set a long time in advance and then tweaked, but they happen every few years. And so, after this one, and, Tuesday, unlike with the Carter funeral, is going to be a working day. It's not going to be a federal holiday. And so, traffic will be up. I think the last count on Wisconsin shows it carries about 22,000 vehicles a day at that spot. 34th Street, about half that. If SOD or other agencies, DPW, can in the future, do a bit more planning, whether it's through temporary signage or others, to, let drivers know that these roads are closed a mile or so ahead, and, encourage other detours and diversions on major streets, so it doesn't, just create a sort of backup and clustering issue on streets that can't handle it as well. Probably made worse by all the snow and ice now. So, would you suggest that after this that, we reach out to SOD or DDOT and say, in your future planning, consider, more ways to provide notice and divert, so, we don't have all this traffic kind of hitting where it stopped and then diverting on the smaller streets.
I know that they put something out on the news about what streets would be closures in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just got to pay attention to that. Also, I don't live in the city. I live in Maryland. So when I come to work, have to go the long way. I go 95 and take Connecticut and come down, because I know everything around the White House. Tidal Basin is going to be blocked off. We know this is just one day. It's going to be inconvenient.
Sure. And folks are used to that, particularly
plan.
folks near the cathedral. But
you just got to add time or not, plan not to make deliveries that day, and it's going to be tough. It's tough every inauguration. It's gonna be a lot of barricades and streets blocked off that are not normally blocked off. So we just, yes, sir.
I could just interject just one more time.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I've talked to SOD about being more a broader base on the traffic regulation, and they are very receptive to it and agree 100%, and I think they will. I think part of the problem is, like, these funerals and these big events
sure.
can happen years or maybe even a decade or more between, and the person I've talked to at SOD and you're talking to me, a decade from now, the next time there's a presidential funeral, I could assure you, you won't be talking to me a decade from now.
Yeah.
So a lot of that is institutional knowledge that unfortunately it's at Secret Service, MPD, and everywhere. What we could try to do is maybe I'll talk to the policy folks and maybe it could be incorporated more into our policies and stuff like that, rather than just being.
Yeah. No, that would be great. I mean, you know, obviously funerals don't happen very often. The national prayer services tend to happen every 4 years right after the inaugural. But you know, as I said, because of everything, the streets, especially Wisconsin, tend to be shut down longer and longer. And you know, it does have an impact and folks understand it, but anything they can do to plan for it and mitigate it a little bit, it'd be appreciated.
We'll look to get that head on further, and that's appreciated. I live in the city, so it affects my commute, affects my going to the grocery store. Wisconsin Avenue is, a big deal. So, yeah, we'll talk about it more with SOD, and it's just part of the problem is their footprint just keeps growing. I wonder if, next time it's going to swallow up Massachusetts Avenue too, or something, just, and that's something that, is just dictated, I think partly dictated by the Secret Service and the needs of other agencies.
Okay, well, I appreciate that.
Before we get to Janelle, I put in the chat. Oh, for some reason it's saying I'm Janelle. Whatever. I put the website. You can text DC Anog to get updates, and you can follow at DC Anog on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, to get further updates. But Janelle has her hand raised.
Yeah, I guess, Rick, are you, what is your concern here that the drivers are being stuck in traffic for too long in areas that they were notified, like probably shouldn't?
Oh, I mean,
Or is your concern like the pedestrians?
really, I mean, more the pedestrians, but it just kind of overwhelms the streets, and you know, particularly with Wisconsin traffic goes south till it can't, go anywhere. Some of it may be able to divert to the west. A lot of it then diverts to the east through, say, Macomb Street, trying to get to Connecticut or 34th, but 34th is blocked. And meanwhile, you have 34th traffic trying to go west or east. And, in the wintertime, it's exacerbated. And so it's all that. And then, people were, of course, walking in the streets because the sidewalks weren't clear. So, again, everybody gets the burden, people live with it and everything.
Yeah.
But, anything to lessen it would be appreciated.
Rick, I would also say that most drivers these days just use Waze, whether you like it or not, and it diverts them away from all these closed streets. Like anybody who's on the ball pays attention to, getting rid of traffic, and you're never going to work your way around that. And they will end up the side streets because of it. Just water flows downhill.
I mean,
and trucks.
Relatively a small issue compared to what is like downtown right now, because they put the Jersey walls on the sidewalk to stage them, making it impossible for two people to pass on the sidewalk downtown on K in Connecticut. Then there's all these people who are standing on that corner of K in Connecticut, and the drivers there are absolute lunatics. So it's been really stressful the past couple of days since they put these out there. And my concern, like, before I'd say anything about this stuff up here, that's like for only a few hours, one day, every 4 years or so, like that's so scary and dangerous there in downtown. So I'd die on that hill, or more likely on the corner of Connecticut and K at this point, than like worrying about up here. And I know that's also the second district at the 1700 block of K and Connecticut Avenue too. So
No, it's true. And of course, again, I appreciate that NPD has a lot on their plate with these events. So. Okay, are there any other questions or comments for the officers?
I just wanted to say thank you for again addressing the patrol car that was parking on the sidewalk down in Woodley Park. Haven't seen it since. So thank you so much.
I saw it parked on the street today.
Yes, they've been parking on this street. I really appreciate that
Really
change. And then hopefully you guys have been briefed on the upcoming project to put the pedestrian barriers on the Taft Bridge. I don't know if DDOT has been regularly updating MPD on the progress of that project, but it's scheduled to go out to bid in February, and then the construction will start in the summer, like May, June is what they're thinking. So I'm sure DDOT will get with you guys and brief you on some of the lane restrictions that are going to happen there, and they also have to do a signal modification. So now this is me updating you on this, but I figured why I had you there, and I know that you and your officers respond to incidents that happen on the Taft, and I know how incredibly hard that must be for everyone involved between you and FEMS too. So I'm just happy to report the progress is coming and that will be solved.
Yep. Thank you for the update. We appreciate that. Any deterrent. It's great. Thank you.
I just have a reiteration of the problem intersection that we have at Connecticut and Devonshire and at the light leaving the exit of the zoo. I bore witness to an almost collision, and the couple that was coming out of the zoo ran the red light and almost hit a person coming up Connecticut Avenue. And then they were upset that people were upset with them. Just a heads up, maybe it was the intensity of the zoo light traffic. I have to say it was a bit more smooth this year than in years past, and there was not nearly as much traffic on my street. And the illegal parking was ticketed, so I have to say I'm very thankful for the increased attention to that issue. But there's not a day that I walk down Devonshire and onto Connecticut where I don't see something happening that is just a really big tragedy waiting to happen. The lights get run all the time. The signal's not long enough for people if they're on Devonshire and they're trying to cross Connecticut. It usually finishes before they get across the street because we have a lot of older people that are not that fast or people with dogs. And it's just every week I see a light being run or something. So I like us in the future to put our heads together and try to think of something that we can do to ameliorate the risk at that intersection.
And we'll add that to our traffic plan for increased enforcement at Connecticut and Devonshire. What time of day is this, are you seeing more a red light?
I've got to tell you, it is all times. It's in the morning,
Rush
and it
hour,
is
even rush.
before rush hour until about 9:30 or 10 o'clock, but especially in the evening. What happens is the traffic gets heavy, people get stuck in the intersection, they'll gut it to try to get past that light, and they'll end up getting stuck in the middle, and people are weaving in and out of the cars to get across the street. And some cars are very high up. Some people are on their phones. They're not paying much attention. Their foot is off the gas. They roll into the intersection. I wish I could probably film a few things for you if you needed me to, because it is at least once a week that I see something that's an almost whoopsie. It's bad. But the evening rush is probably the most egregious, but it's at any given time. People regularly run that light. They think of it as a non-light, I think.
Okay. All right, Ms. Tober, we'll address that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all you do.
Thanks. Well, seeing no further questions, once again, want to thank Captain Haskis and Lieutenant Johnson for your time tonight and for this very informative update. And let you get on with your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us, and please feel free to reach out if y'all ever need anything.
Okay, thanks again.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
You too.
Adam?
Yes. So just 1 second. I'm like trying to fix something on the website at the same time. I just wanted to talk quickly about our meeting that we had in December with Darren King from the Office of the Attorney General on the SAFE Act. So the SAFE Act, they obviously came and presented to the ANC about it, and then it's sat for a roundtable slash, what's the word I'm looking for, markup at the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety with Councilmember Brooke Pinto. And a lot of people submitted stuff to the record, and in my conversation with Darren King post the meeting, they are looking at revising the bill and reintroducing it for council consideration this period. Obviously, anything that did not move forward at the end of last council period has to be reintroduced this January or this month or whenever in the next 2 years. So they're looking at taking feedback on what was the original bill, and then or taking what feedback they got on the original bill and reintroducing it to the council. I have spoken just in passing with Courtney Carlson and 3F, and I know her ANC is planning on submitting something to the record when the new draft is dropped. And I know that the OAG's office was interested in coming back here to talk about the new SAFE Act once it's ready to, or once it's introduced. So I just want to put on everybody's radar that we will be hearing from them shortly, but also want you to think about, because I know Courtney and I have talked a little bit about how we liked the concept of the bill was great, but like Courtney and I both as renters, sorry if I outed you as a renter, Courtney, but feel as though the bill, while it's well intended, has no like background teeth to like kind of protect the tenants from, if they do make formal complaints, there is no retaliation clause that would protect the tenant from making sort of claims. I mean, there are retaliation laws on the book, but there is nothing specific to this bill that would make it a little harder for a landlord that's already derelict in their duty to do that. So I just want you all to put in your head something that you might think, or stuff that you even liked about the bill, so we can, I'm assuming if it's okay with everybody on this committee, draft some comments when the new version drops, which should be soon-ish.
Like this month, Adam?
I think they were thinking February.
Okay.
There's still like Courtney and Elizabeth Mitchell, anybody, if you have any feedback on what the original bill was, like you can send it to me and I can pass it along to them. It just because the hearing is over and the record closed doesn't mean that like we can't, I don't want to say back channel, but back channel to OAG.
Well, yeah, I mean, where could I find the full extent of the original
I'll
bill?
put it in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you. And I really would, what do you think about me encouraging other apartment renters or other tenants in our jurisdiction to weigh in and read? Would that help, or should it just be more streamlined to our committee or members of an organization?
I mean, I personally would say like if you have something that you definitely want to see in a revised copy, like I can get it to Darren, and then once the new version drops, if you want to share that with people, because that way they can go in and comment in the council system, and it'll be like on the record. Because like right now, anything that we send OAG on the SAFE Act is not going to be in a public forum. And I feel like if they see it from a lot more people, you know, they might be more inclined to make amendments on it. But that's
Okay, good.
my,
Now, am I misnaming him? Is he Damon or Darren?
I think he might be Damon. You might be right.
Oh, okay, because gave me a sweat. I think I called him Damon, and if I did, I didn't want to get his name wrong, but thank you. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna print out what you put in chat, or like send it to people in my building, because there have been elevator frustrations, and I just think they would feel better if they thought that there was some way to redress some of these issues without retaliation and fear, right? Because some are older people that have lived here 30 plus more years, and some are younger people that, are just starting out. But either way, they don't want their livelihood to be challenged by their residency or lack of security in their home.
Is there a way that the ANC itself or that the security committee might consider holding a real meeting in person with people who are affected by this to really take comments, spend the time on a Saturday morning or something and invite your constituents to come in and share what they think, just to spread a little bit of a wider net? Because I think it is an area of concern for so many of the people that live in Cleveland Park. And I think that there's such a scattershot way that information and opinions are collected, but the voices seem to be saying the same messages, and it might be a very helpful thing for the ANC to reach out in a way that it hasn't since before the pandemic, to open up a forum, especially to discuss the SAFE Act and have people come in and share and really collect opinions, so that when you opine, you really have a good representation of specific events that people and specific things that have happened that, you probably help. You get
I
what you
mean,
want.
it's something that we can look into. It would have to be in a somewhat hybrid fashion, just
It would
because
have, maybe,
Yeah.
but
I don't know if
it's
we
been a
are.
very long time, and I think that
Well, if
we're
you
losing
read our notice
participation.
for next week, we're doing 2 hybrid meetings this year.
I think that's a fantastic start, Adam. Really, my compliments.
So, but I think we will try to test with maybe 1 or 2 committees, so I can talk to Janelle and Rick, and I mean, we can see, just because I believe it would have to be a hybrid meeting, because I think that's what the ANC law calls for right now. So I would just have to go back and read and just make sure it's something that we can
You could
do.
invite a drop-in listening session with a hybrid component or a Zoom component. Something could be done, but I think there are a lot of stories in the neighborhood that have really amassed lately that are not getting told.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, if I just think people are either embarrassed or they're afraid, or they think it's just them, and then you find out that more people are experiencing similar things. And I think it would be just really good for us to just try to open it up a little bit more. I know personally people I would send the information, Adam, that you shared with me too, but I would love to make it generally available to these buildings, at
I
least even
support
on,
Courtney on that.
yeah,
You're right,
that would
Courtney.
be great though, and I appreciate it. I appreciate all your work on it. I am so thankful not to feel the way I was feeling before Mr. King came on, and I just can't tell you, it's given so many people like a shot of hope that some of these things could be resolved, and I'm invigorated by it, and thank you.
Yeah.
I chime in here and say that y'all are making an assumption that the only time that we hear from people in our community is in these public meetings, and that is not at all true.
It's not an assumption, John. I'm sure you're here.
And another point I want to raise is that all of our meetings are recorded and posted online. So there are a lot of people who are not at all comfortable in a public forum, in person, virtual, any way, shape, or form, telling their story. And I get that. So yeah, I'm constantly out on the street talking to people who approach me with things like this that we try to work through, and I give them the resources that they need, and I try to help as much as I can. And also in providing input to the resolutions and the letters we pass. Another thing to note regarding some changes, this was also listed on our note or on our meeting notice, that we're going to go and change the way that we go about noticing our meetings. And we're going to add putting flyers and posters in public spaces, and also hopefully enlisting folks in multifamily buildings to post flyers within their buildings, so that we're making sure we're getting that notice, meeting people where they are, because not all the people subscribe to listservs, right? Not all the people in this area are getting our newsletter. So we're going to make a conscious effort to put the signs up, generate more interest, because people who are walking by the signs, waiting sometimes at the longer crosswalks, Courtney, because some of them are excessively long, and getting more outreach out there. So that's something that we're hoping will influence more people to turn out and give us inputs.
Well, let me know if you want some help with that, posting them up and stuff. I'll be happy to.
I was already reaching out to you on this anyway.
Right. Yeah, I just can't tell you all the internal and things that go through people when their home feels like untenable. It's just so much. It's so emotional. It's so personal, and it's so difficult. So this gives me, I just can't even tell you. We were thinking about forming a tenants association, because we had just some really egregious things happen, and they're still unresolved. So this is good stuff. This is absolutely in the public interest. Because even for our more or less transient residents, in order to feel like you're creating a community, you want some stability. So that goes with living comfortably at home, shopping comfortably, and all those things. So let's tack it every way we can, I suppose. So thank you both.
Thank you. I think we still have a bit more time, including for some informal discussion, this being the first meeting of the calendar year and also of the new ANC term. Are there other issues, matters that, particularly committee members would like to see us address or tackle in coming months?
I don't know. Is litter a thing? Is litter a concern with anybody? We regularly clean up our street.
I see Janelle every Saturday morning when I'm hungover at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and she has way too much energy picking up litter. And I don't mean to say that I'm hungover every Saturday, but every, so often Adam indulges at a Capitals game, but I see Janelle and I'm like, I'm walking up to the Starbucks and I haven't had any coffee yet. And I just see hi, and I'm like, oh my God, you have too much
Yeah.
energy. But yes, Janelle does do the litter pickup. We did it for Sidewalk Palooza. It's actually very relaxing, oddly.
Well,
it seems to be a neighborhood connector too, in a lot of ways. The times that I have advocated for extra waste, trash cans and stuff like that, there's only a certain path, it seems, that the garbage men pick up. So you can't get them like on side streets by the library benches and stuff. It's just not on their path. It was a work to get it on the corner. So I don't think they're going to be handing out. I have a thing, it's not exactly safety, but it's an ANC thing. It now seems that starting January 1st, all businesses need to accept cash. It can't be, and I just don't know where we are on the Connecticut Avenue Strip with the restaurants and food stores that were not accepting cash. I don't know if they flipped over at the Cracked Eggery and at the
They
bakery,
haven't.
stuff like that, but I know that the ANC was thinking about it.
The bars and restaurants are exempt from that.
Oh, restaurants are?
Restaurants are exempt from,
Mhm.
Wow.
how is
I'll
that?
tell you why restaurants are exempt. It's because of payroll taxes.
I don't think that was it. I think it was more of a public safety thing.
Oh, I
especially
thought it was because they
I-
were trying to make sure
Bars,
that
it
tipped
was-
employees were paying their fair income
I
tax.
thought that also, like, it was only true if you were open in the evenings, but some of those stores, like that bakery and Cracked Eggery, closed by
Right.
like 3 in the afternoon, so I'm not so sure they're exempt.
I have to say, yeah, I have plenty of credit cards, but for those who don't have them or don't want to use them, it feels like a form of discrimination.
I think it is.
Yeah,
Like, for everybody who's unbanked,
yeah.
Well,
you
I
know,
will ask, I can talk to Cassandra. I know I've talked to Robert about it. As far as I know, I think most of the businesses, if not all of the businesses on the Woodley Park commercial corridor are equipped for both. I think there might be one, but it's a temporary business.
You know,
but particularly for food, and when so many people actually are asking for money to buy food on the strip, to not be able to spend their money is really,
legal
form
tender,
of
legal
discrimination.
tender, you know,
I beg your pardon?
legal tender should be
Yeah.
legal tender.
Exactly. I mean, it really, there's a real injustice to that.
Yeah.
Mm.
I have to agree. I felt badly about it. So,
Well, I can, and maybe Rick, because he knows Cassandra better than I do, but maybe we could just talk to Cassandra and see where
Okay.
her businesses are at. I honestly didn't. Well, I usually get Cracked Eggery delivered, so I guess that's why I didn't know they didn't take cash. But because I'm not walking up there at that hour in the morning.
I
So-
know it was cracked that surprised me the most. And yeah, and the pizza, there was a pizza place there before that also did the same thing.
So can I just say, council passed the legislation, so the time for the ANC to weigh in is passed.
Okay.
But
So
the legislation is that
now- this is now enforcement. So the enforcing agency is whatever the half of DCRA is that does the business.
DLCP.
Thank you. So the report, it just needs to be reported to them, and then they do the enforcement. There's nothing.
so you're asking citizens as opposed to the ANC getting involved, citizens individually report?
That about the cash issue.
if there are businesses not complying with
Okay.
the law, people need to report the non-compliance, and then that agency sends out the inspector and then enforces the law.
And so you don't want the moral heft of the ANC behind this one.
I don't mind reporting it if that's a place. I just want to make sure I'm not reporting somebody who's legally allowed not to accept cash.
Well, if they send an inspector out, they can determine whether there's an exception.
Yeah, I'll do
When-
that.
When was the effective date again?
January 1st.
January 1.
So, I mean, my guess is that the agency is gonna be in a warning phase before they take any serious enforcement, but, now's the time to call their attention to businesses that.
So the exemptions are businesses that never accepted cash prior to the law taking effect, businesses with alcohol licenses, and or those who are open late at night. Sales that are made over the phone or internet are obviously exempted. Retail or food stores that have a device to convert cash to prepaid cards.
Huh. That's an interesting option.
Retail or food stores that have a device that can, oh, I just read that.
Which
Like
would
buying a
probably
gift
hefty
card.
transaction fee.
Yeah. So, but I guess that would mean that any business that never accepted cash would be exempt. So I would assume that makes Cracked Eggery exempt.
Yeah, and that pizza place in Mount Pleasant. Yeah, there might be a couple of places that
And any business that has an alcohol license and or is open late at night for the first 90 days of the law being in effect.
Does the French bakery in Cleveland Park have alcohol? I can't remember.
I think they take cash. It's the bakery across the street, the Japanese one.
Oh. Oh, oh, that's right. You're right. That's right. No, they never took cash, did they?
I
Yeah, I
don't,
just think it's so wrong that so many people can't shop everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I've only been there once because, yeah, that's funny. All right.
Just to piggyback on what Rick said, Robert last year, and again, apologies for putting you on the spot, Robert. He did some outreach with, I think was it FEMS, Robert, that did the CPR and the, oh my God, I can't think of what the other thing
yeah.
was. Thank you. Training for, I attended one, I think I was with Jeff from WPCA at Le Petit Monde, where they taught me how to administer Narcan. And then obviously I didn't do the CPR training, but CPR training, in case anybody did not realize, I did not realize, but it's obviously changed since COVID, and it's no longer like mouth to mouth, it's just
That's right.
compressions. So I think it would be something to do if we even partnered with Robert or Cassandra and as the public safety committee kind of tried to educate people on how to administer
It's a good
Narcan.
idea.
Obviously, it's not something that everybody's comfortable in doing, or even just administering CPR, but I definitely think it's public safety, and it's a life skill that would be good to have.
I think that's good. And there's another program called Stop the Bleed for all, bleeding wounds like
Oh,
gunshots.
let me tell you,
automobiles.
Elizabeth, let me tell you about my experience
Oh.
in the kitchen on Friday when I sliced my
Oh,
finger
let me see that finger. Let me see your finger.
Did
Oh,
somebody who
yeah,
had Stop the Bleed training help you?
No, I went to urgent care. I guess the doctor might have had stopped the bleed, but
yeah.
it was pretty bad. I was visiting my mother in Florida. She has a new house with new knives that are very sharp, and a normal knife would not have done what that did.
Right. Well, I'm CPR, AED, and first aid certified, Red Cross. It's like probably time for a renewal. I think that's an excellent idea. I think part of our, when we have our Woodley Park Day or something, which is different, but it'd be good to have like a little training session, what to do for choking, what to do for Narcan, and what to do for I don't know if we want to do stop the bleeding. I think it'd be helpful,
Might turn
given,
some people off because they might get
yeah, it might scare them, but
a little
yeah,
scared, but it's a good idea.
I
I
think
think it's
so.
a great idea. Yeah. And it was FEMS, and I have a consultant from them that I had at the markets. And I can
Awesome. And then was it DBH that did the Narcan training? Because that
Yes.
guy was a rock star.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a really good idea.
Especially since you can get Narcan for free. So in conjunction with teaching people how to use it, everybody
Yep.
could get some.
I
Yeah.
have 10 boxes downstairs of I think 12 doses per box.
Wow.
And so we have them for all of the markets to hand out. Test strips, Narcan itself.
What kind of test strips?
So it's basically to check for the presence of fentanyl in
That's
in
so
what people are
smart.
using. Yeah, yeah, to prevent the need for Narcan in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah, and actually the Narcan. So I have a daughter who's 1.5 and a son who's 3.5, and I didn't realize this, but my father passed away last year, and we had some opioids in the house. And it turns out that even if children get hold of medicine, you can use Narcan to reverse some of the effects, even in small children.
Wow.
Which yeah, that really surprised me. It's amazing stuff.
Cha-ching.
But I mean, I went to the one that Robert did at the Le Petit Monde in Woodley Park, and the outcome, what's the word I'm looking? I'm like really blanking today. Turnout was really, really good, and I was surprised. But it's definitely something that I think we can look at, because it is a public safety issue.
We'll add it to Woodley Park Day.
Yay.
Add it to the agenda, Robert. I'm giving you homework.
Excellent. This will be fun.
And then the other thing that I did want to mention and kind of just gauge some quick interest on is I'm gonna try to reach out to the when a new one is confirmed and ready to go. The old outgoing U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, the one that actually prosecutes crime and not the attorney general, well, I guess prosecutes felonies, was stepping up some outreach to AMCs as the Matthew Graves is leaving. So I'm hoping that the new one will continue said outreach and we can have somebody from their office come and join us, but that might be a little ways off.
May I ask a question? Is there
Mhm.
any idea of anticipated tension between the upcoming administration and our local government? Does anybody anticipate any interference with the council or I think the mayor's office is gonna have some fun. But any other thoughts from anybody about what might be coming down the pike?
I'll defer to
Don't
others.
wanna
From what I read, I think that it's more likely that you'll see more attempts at flexing muscle coming from the Hill maybe than from the administration. I mean, from what I've observed so far, there seems to be a little bit closer and more transactional relationship between the city and the incoming administration, and
I think we won't know till we know though, because I mean,
Exactly,
you can,
so-
I think everybody can imagine worst case scenarios, best case scenarios, and everything in between, and we just don't even know who the players are quite yet.
I do want to just mention, because this came up in conversation at my real job today, which ironically I had to teach a bunch of government affairs officials the how a bill becomes a law.
Yeah.
Home rule itself, I find the idea that Trump can just come in and just say home rule is gone is not happy. It's not true. Like
Right.
home rule, an official appeal of home rule would have to pass both the House,
Yep.
get 60 votes in the Senate, then pass the Senate again, and then go to the president to be signed. And then at that point, even before any of that happens, there would be 99 million lawsuits.
Yeah.
So the idea that home rule, I mean, not to say that home rule is not in theory, at risk. That's obviously a risk, but the likelihood of it happening is very low, just because obviously there's only 53 Republican senators in the House, in the Senate, and they would need 60, as which they would need 7 Democrats to come and join them. And I also don't think a lot of members of Congress want to be dealing with my trash wasn't picked up today. Or there's a person outside my house that looks a little suspicious. So I definitely think there's a lot of talk, but I don't think we'll know what that talk is until there's action.
I
Yeah,
can tell you historically that when Congress did have jurisdiction over the machinations of the city, they pretty much were negligent in their duties. So a lot
Well,
of
that's why
stuff
they
happened.
came up with
Yeah.
home rule.
Yep. Because yeah. But I was just wondering if anyone heard anything, if there was anything directly in the crosshairs, and we will find out when we find out. But I was just wondering.
yeah, I agree with Rick that most of it would probably come from the Hill,
Yeah.
not the administration. And the people who are talking about stuff on the Hill, I mean, I think abortion rights is probably going to be one that if they had low hanging fruit, they're gonna hit us with that. But that requires a level of competence. And also, you have to remember that the numbers in the House are pretty
slim.
close, and that there's several
Pro-choice Republicans.
well, no, there's several octogenarians, probably on both sides. Um, so, and they all have to be present to vote. Like you can't remote vote in Congress. So that's going to be an interesting thing to See how it plays out. I think with the House Speaker vote even being
Yeah.
kind of a technical shit show, like I don't know. But yeah, I again, to Rick and Adam's point, it's gonna be folks on the Hill, and we'll see.
And it is the one time I will say that, and I will go on record, I guess this technically is on record, that I am extremely happy that Muriel Bowser is the mayor, because she's done this before and she got through the 4 years, and there was not a lot. There was some, but there was not a lot of like interference in day-to-day life here. And I think she knows when to push back and tell him no, and when to just fold. And as much as I don't want her to fold, if it means that for the most part we will get to keep our autonomy, then I am whatever she can do.
Well, thank you, Rick.
And I know she had gone down to, or came here to Florida to meet with him at some point while he was president-elect.
Oh, she went down to Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah,
She did. She said she
How
had
did
a
I
whole
miss that?
conversation. Apparently Trump has become a very big Washington Commanders fan, and he's very impressed with Jaden Daniels. So maybe that's what she released to the media. So maybe that bleeds hope for us.
Well, she wants, you know,
RFK.
his new OPM to call the federal workers all back to the office
Yes.
5 days a week. So we'll see.
You need to see.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Rick and
Good night, Courtney.
everybody.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Okay.
Have a good
well,
night
thanks. Okay. Good
Thank
night.
you. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Robert.
Bye, Mitchell.
Bye.